Okay, so today's Dharma, I have two Dharma books, and these are so far apart that I'm going to kind of give you the choice of which one you want to hear about. You know, sometimes we can be growing so much. It's just like well, it seems like a thin line. It's a wise chasm, but it seems like a thin line between our budding wisdom and actual prajna. And so we can start to learn so much that our head gets like a helium balloon. And although we know things, we can um, give it back. We can recite, we can explain, we can use our marvelous mental capacity to explain things. And yet there can be the lack of peace and ease that it's a lack of peace and ease in us because we do not are not abiding in a commensurate state of peace and emptiness. And so that's when you know that what you're learning is beginning to supersede your actual state capacity for peace and ease. And so that's when one should work more diligently at cultivating and developing meditation. Otherwise, there are some who just like to sit and meditate because they fall into I would call it like a dumb-minded state. So it's a state of ease, but it's not born of understanding. It's a state of ease that's born of a sort of like an inner collapse. So you don't even see your delusion. And so you're in, it's almost like through a kind of exhaustion that you like let it go. It's like if you're trying to go to sleep and you can't go to sleep, you can't go to sleep, you can't go to sleep. And finally you fall asleep due to exhaustion, then that wasn't a peaceful transition into a state of rest. It was a consequence of just being totally exhausted. So sometimes as we're walking through our life, we reach these states where our our mind consciousness, our ordinary mind consciousness, outpaces our capacity to enter into certain states, and so we find, although we know more, we have we find ourselves in a state of restlessness. Although we know more, we find ourselves not able to walk in what we know. Although we know more, we find that we're having less and less a sense of peace or joy or contentment. Although we know more, we find our capacity to handle the vicissitudes of life, we find them becoming more challenging, or we have a greater inability. That begins to work with our sense of ourself, because we know something and yet cannot walk in what we know, or it causes a doubt to arise because we can't uh, actually experience that which we say we know and understand. And so we get, so our spiritual life starts to get complicated. And that's why some people, like when you talk about a beginner's mind, some people are happier and more content in their beginning stages of spiritual practice than when they go deeper. And so there is a cure for that. And the cure is to find the balance, what's missing in your cultivation, and begin to work on that. It's like a plane trying to go straight ahead, but its wings are like this. They're not going to go straight ahead. They're going to go in this direction. And you're like, why can't I get over the head? That's because you have to, you're going to have to bring that wing up to take you in a straight direction. And so that's why we should always be looking at our life and examining where we are through the lens of our cultivation, our behaviors, our thoughts, our speech, our action, what we because that lets us know. I mean, we don't have to ask somebody else even. That will let us know where we are or where we are deficient, or I'm sorry, I have an eye tearing, where we are deficient in our practice. And we, the fun is nobody has to tell us, you do this now. Now you do this. Now you do this. No one has to tell us. We can examine our own, thank you, sister, our own inner landscape, and we can know for ourselves what we need to do. Um, and that's why I love this process. I'm not on anybody's schedule but my own. And you can rest assured that you're not on anybody's schedule but your own. So I thought I could talk about today, for those of us who are concerned about where this world is headed, I thought I could talk about Maitreya, who is the next Buddha to come. He was supposed to be here before Shakyamuni, but he didn't listen to the full Dharma talk, and he missed something, and Shakyamuni slid in before him. And so, but he's the next one coming because he's bringing, when he comes, this will be a pure land. That's why I know we're not going to be blown up or destroyed, because there will be a pure land here. And so you may not have heard about that. So I could talk about that. I think it would give you some confidence to be able to hold the shifts and the changes that are occurring. We think things are changing now, but it's not that they're changing now. They have been changing, and now we're seeing the fruit, the result of the change, but the seeds have long since been planted and watered. Now crop is coming up. Well, in a way, that's a bad thing, but in another way, it's a good thing because it takes time for the soil to be prepared, for things to be germinated, living things to grow, and it's a much shorter distance between when they're fully grown and when they begin to die on the vine, you know. And so, in a way, we can have some confidence that this is really like the aftermath. If we think so much about what is coming, this is actually the aftermath of all the seeds that have been planted, all the eras of commission and omission, you know. So we're a little bit behind, behind behind coming out of the gate if we're just starting to be really, really worried. The time to have been really, really concerned and to take action was before the crop grew. That's what I'm saying. So we have to get ahead of the process, so that we can usher in a process. Otherwise, we'll always be behind looking at the fruit and saying, how did this happen? And so that's what I can talk about that. Or
choices.
Yeah.
And
Or I could, because I wanted to talk about both of these, or I could talk about the encourage you in your meditation practice of Jhana. I could talk about that. And the conditions for you to have success in Jhana, and why, even if you're not that good with Jhana, you're still okay if you can take up the principle practices of the precepts. We have this idea that we have to be so perfect, but actually our requirements for remaining at least in the human realm, as we go through rounds of samsara, that means coming back, in the human vehicle, they're very, very meager, you know. And although might have an aspiration to be a Buddha or to be a Bodhisattva or to be a holy being, it's a great aspiration to have. But if you're unsure about what the requirements are to live successfully as a human being, maybe I should review those with you. And then you wouldn't put yourselves under a kind of pressure that is not required. You can have an aspiration. Having an aspiration is wonderful, but when you put yourself under a requirement to live in a state that you think is necessary to be okay in this world, then you have misunderstood the teaching, and it's kind of like running when nobody's chasing you. And that's where the mind speak has filtered into it, or some confusion about understanding what this walk is all about and what your place is in it. And it causes it to not be a contented walk, or not to be a successful walk. And we don't find joy in the human existence. And so we lose our capacity, to keep moving upward. So I can talk about one of the which one y'all want to talk about?
The trance sound fascinating.
Which one?
The trance sound fascinating.
Okay. Anybody else?
Then Wednesday, Jhana.
Is Jhana where, is that related?
I want to talk about concentration meditation.
Is that related to what you were saying about, we can reach a high level of knowing, and yet our experience in everyday life is, I don't have as much joy as I thought I was gonna have, or I don't have as much peace. Is that related? Is jhana and meditation related?
Jhana is capacity for concentration. And they're all different levels of it. And I'll start at the beginning level and take it further. This would not be dharma meditation practices where we generate the qualities of a Buddha or a Bodhisattva and imagine ourselves abiding in those qualities. It's kind of like when, I don't know what boys do, but girls would play dress up. When they were children, they would like put on their mama's high heel shoes and big hat, and silk blouse and parade around, pretending to be mama. And it's sort of like that, hearing about and imagining what the fine qualities of a bodhisattva or a Buddha are. So you're basically vacating or letting go of the ordinary mind. And for a while, you spend time as if you had the particular qualities of a Buddha or a bodhisattva. And the more you do that, the more your mind begins to incline towards those qualities. And that's how you develop the qualities. They say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, and so it's sort of like if I play being good, after a while, I will just start being good because my mind is continually inclining in that way. If I play being a bad boy, ultimately, my mind will begin to incline in that way, and I'll develop a craving for doing those things that bad boys do. And so that can kind of help you. It becomes familiar territory. if you incline your mind in a certain way, you will take on that mind ultimately. And so these are easy ways that we can cultivate good qualities or useful qualities or beneficial qualities. And that's the purpose of doing it. But before one can have a deep appreciation for that kind of dharma meditation, that kind of taking on those qualities, there are some principles and some precepts. Those that are our beginning or foundational stages or platforms that it's like the helicopter's taking off, right? And you got to run and grab the last rung and pull yourself up to get into the helicopter. Or you might have to hop on a platform to reach that first rung. And so you could think of the precepts as like those platforms by which you will be high enough that you can grasp the first rung that's taking off. And if we understand this, the path will become joyful for us. Every obstacle that we encounter, rather than gritting and seeing it as something that we have to struggle to overcome, we would find a kind of delight in it because we know what surrounding it will afford us. We know the value of it, what it will give us. And even though like I'm not feeling it right now, but I know on the basis of other practices I have done or the preliminary practices I have done, I know that if I do this, something good is going to come from it, something beautiful is going to come from it. I'm going to have a mental shift at some point in this progress, in this process. It's like we want it, we want it now, but if you give a child everything they want and they don't have to exert any personal effort in attaining it, it's not a matter of them not being able or the matter of them not appreciating it. It is they have no capacity to. They have no capacity. But when they have worked themselves to realize something, to grasp something, to accomplish something, then they have a sense of a self pride or self capability or self capacity to overcome, to surmount, to win, you know. And unfortunately, we live in a society where things had been so good and we wanted our children to have what we didn't have. We wanted them to have the best, and we just about give them everything, and they have no inner fortitude. It's not really that they have no gratitude. I mean, if gratitude is not fostered in you through the allowance of your own qualities and efforts to mature, then you can't just say that they're not grateful because it's not really their fault. If we have not created the circumstances and the environments whereby they can know their own strengths and they can know their own qualities. So a lot of the work we talk about needs to be done with the youth, actually needs to be done with their parents. And some it's too late. So we have to try to work with them. And for us, same thing. So as we're entering the Dharma, no, and the difference is that maybe we have too many materials. We got too many materials. You can just read, there's a gabillion books on the Dharma. Some written by good practitioners, some written by good writers, but they may not be practitioners. I know a very famous monk. He's a very good friend of mine. I love him dearly, and most of our or a lot of our Dharmic texts have been translated by him. But so he's a great scholar and he's a great human being. But he's not a meditator, has never been able to meditate. He has like a head injury, and so he can't meditate. So, in terms of um, being able to scholarly translate something is different from having a direct experience of it and apprehension of the prajna that arises through direct experience. So I can follow him a long way to like get some of the information that I need, but there's going to be a limit to what he can offer beyond the articulation of words because he does not have the direct experience of the outcomes of meditation because he can't meditate, you see. So when he starts describing meditation and he starts talking about meditation, I can't rely on that as much because he doesn't have the experience of meditation. So he can work with words and he can do all of that. And he can take me. Now, other things he can really talk about, and he can give me a real roadmap, but not around meditation. So because someone excels at one thing doesn't mean they excel at everything. And so the Buddha says the best way to know things is to contemplate and shine the light or the illumination to illuminate the teachings. And to do that, one has to have the ability to concentrate. So I forgot which one y'all said you wanted.
Let's talk about this.
But I just realized how they can come together.
Yeah, right.
Full disclosure, Dina's vote was for number one, but.
What was
Now you have all
number
three.
Maitreya. Okay, so maybe I will get to Maitreya. Maybe I will. Okay, but let me go with the meditation and we'll see how much time we have. When we talk about karma, we say karma can definitely lead, to retribution or to reward, But the fruition can both be determined and undetermined. So in our way of thinking, things are this or they're that. And the first part of coming together with a non-differentiating mind is to stop dividing this from that. So he says we have to have a non-discriminating mind. That doesn't mean that we don't clearly see what's beneficial and what's unbeneficial, but we have to know that there can be the unbeneficial in something that is good, and there can be something beneficial in something that we would consider not good. And if we demark the classifications or the divisions too concretely, then we lose a basis for the surmounting kind of wisdom that brings not only understanding, but brings a capacity to shift or change or transform outcomes. And that's how some good things go bad, some bad things become good. So we don't have the capacity to participate in the transformation of things if we have too much of a demarcation and we can't develop a non-discriminating mind. And so when we say that the stages of fruition and karma can be both determined and undetermined, The first thing we have to realize is that no karma will be destroyed before the fruit of it expires. So that means once something's set in motion, it's going to come to a conclusion, and whether and or it's going to roll to a stop. It's going to finish, and whether it finishes over here or over there depends on what happens after that karma is activated. It starts going. So we can't look at a current situation and say, oh, I know what's going to happen with it. It's going to be like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that, because once that karma is activated, there is continual karma that's feeding into that situation that has the capacity or the possibility of shifting the outcome or changing the direction. And that's how things that we thought were going to be so bad turn out to be not so bad, and things that we thought were going to be so good turn out to be so bad. We said, how did this happen? You know, and so he tells us to have this mind of understanding how karma comes about. And to be able to do that, we have to be in a certain state of ease and observation. And that's why meditation is so important. Otherwise, our minds will just run away with our own internal scenarios about what's happening and what I need to do mostly to protect myself, whether it's protect myself from an external force like the government or somebody, or to protect myself from internal forces, which are the seeds that are already planted, waiting to be watered in my own mind. You know, so a lot of times things that we think somebody gave to us, or somebody did to us, or somebody facilitated, didn't even have anything to do with them or any external condition, but we within ourselves watered um, uh, deficient or unwholesome seeds in our own mind, and we bring forth something, and we think somebody out there is doing something to us, or that we're being impacted by some kind of force when it has to do with us internally watering deficient seeds in our own mind. And that's one reason why there are different types of meditation. You know, meditations can cure different kinds of sicknesses, but you got to take the right medicine. You know, if I got a sore throat, then I don't want to take something for a cut finger. You know, you have to take the right medicines, and so there are these different forms of practices for the different kinds of sicknesses that we have. Uh, And in taking the different kinds taking up the different kinds of practices, one has to know even in what order to take them up. What like it's the ocean doesn't flow into a stream and into a river and go upstream to a tributary. A tributary flows into a river and it flows into the ocean. I mean, the fish swim downstream, except salmon have a nature of flipping and swimming upstream. But let a trout try that. You know, and so we have to know what kind of fish we are. We have to know what it is that we need at this particular time. And that's where investigation into one's own self becomes so critical and so important. We're trying to take care and fix everything out here around us so that we'll be safe and so that we'll be mature, so that we'll be lacking in no good thing. But it starts with and continues throughout our process to require that we turn a reflective light inward and that we know ourselves at every moment. And I think I think that's where we have a great deal of trouble, because we think of these as, I don't know, methods or processes and of things that we do, but it's a little different than that. It's not actually, although I initiate something, in a sense, I am doing something, but it's actually what we become, things that we become, how we transform and become goodness itself, you know. Um, uh, I remember in when I first read in the Bible somewhere, and it said that, you know, we always talk about a loving God and all of this, you know. Um, but then I read a passage and it said, God is love. And it changed something for me, because it ceased to be a kind of uh, external quality that was imputed upon a being, and it became the quality itself. So there wasn't a being with this quality, that it was purely this quality. And that changed my whole idea and understanding of God concept in the way that it had been taught to me before. And it changed my relationship with how I practiced in my life. And it was no longer trying to find a book and read something and 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 grasp after this being who could give me that, but it became the being became a metaphor for the quality. And that's something different. So when you see us doing different practices with the different Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the holy beings, it's like this is not the whole story, but this is part of the story. Understanding them as a metaphor for the quality, and then imputing that quality upon yourself. What would it be like if I had that quality? Well, how does that quality present? How does that quality function and operate in the world? You know, what behaviors come from that quality? So we can know what we have a drawing or attachment to by the aroma, you know, that we possess. It's not like, oh, somebody. She's always thinking about other people. It's not always thinking about other people at all. It's not a she thinking about other people. There is the quality of the expansiveness of and connecting with another as if it's myself. What I want for myself, I want for other people. If I don't have any heat, you know, then I want to be warm, you know, and I would hope that someone would help me. That's all, you know. So that's so it erases that line between yourself and others, and that's a certain kind of quality. So it's not like uh, doing something, it's becoming one with a certain kind of mind stream. That stream only sees the need, whether it's my need or whether it's somebody else's need. It's just recognizing that there is a need, and if I have the capacity to fill it, and let's say I only have enough for what I need, and for what somebody else needs, then what I do is I'm only weighing the need. I'm not weighing the person who gets it. Do I get it or do they get it? I'm not weighing the person. I'm only weighing the need. And so sometimes, I will give something I really need it, but my need is not as great uh, as their need for warmth. I mean, and so it starts to be a personal. If that it's not dependent on the who, it's dependent on the what, and that's a quality. You see, so we will get lost if we take words and we try to emulate words without understanding that this is a germination of certain qualities and what those qualities, how they present when we open the door to them. And so to be able to detect the true quality of things requires concentration. And so when we talk about the jhanas, means otherwise jhana practice can be a very selfish practice. There are some there are some monks that all they want to do is sit in jhana. They don't want to be bothered with you. They don't want to be bothered with your problems. They don't want to hear nothing that you have to say. They don't want to, they don't have any kind of patience or understanding or sense of compassion for things that you're going through. They don't, they just want to sit in their little jhana sphere, you know, and um, and and that's a selfish. It's actually a selfish motivation. So I don't have um, a lot of respect for those who practice in that kind of way, because the true uh, the true jhanic practice, you can do that when you're laying down, when you're walking, when you're standing up, when you're sitting, when you're engaged in activities with other people, because it's a kind of quality and a kind of state. It's not, and until you get to understand it in that way, you're not truly entering into concentrate. You might be quiet, or you might not have like anything on your mind, but it's not true concentration. So I will talk about then uh, this method of uh, concentration, you know, um, to have one's mind focused, you know, in one state is called concentration. And when we get into it, you know, um, both suffering and pleasure will recede. Suffering and pleasure will recede. And its purpose is to um, bring together the scatteredness that's in the ordinary mind. It's kind of like, instead of it being refracted light, it brings it into a laser sharp focus. So you don't really have more light. It's just that your light is fractured. It's just all over the place. But this brings it into sharp focus. Mhm. And so through meditation, you can have a clear sense of things, and you can have a peaceful mind, and you can begin to be the master of your own mind. So it's not how much we know, like in this refracted light sense, but how much of it we can pull together to have a laser sharp focus to apply the wisdom where it needs to be applied, or to be able to have the vision to truly see what's going on, because our mind is not taking us in 10 different directions. And if you don't develop this bit by bit, then that scatteredness of mind will take your meditation off into some really bad areas. So we shouldn't practice meditation out of curiosity. We shouldn't just jump into every kind of meditation by anybody who's teaching something. Um, um, we shouldn't do meditation with a distinct desire to develop super mundane powers, although they may develop, but you're not doing them the meditation to develop them, because then that becomes an ignoble objective. And one's meditation has to be guided by kind thoughts. That's the first platform. Kind thoughts regarding oneself, kind thoughts regarding others. No need to try to meditate if it's not established upon the platform of kindness. That's why loving kindness and compassion and altruistic joy and what we call equanimity, but Buddha Master calls it boundless generosity, so that you really understand the punch of equanimity is your boundless capacity to be generous in whatever way that generosity is needed for all beings everywhere. So if you're trying to meditate because you have an issue or you have a problem, and you just want to sit here and get your mind, steady and clear, that's not the right condition for meditation. The right condition is it must be established upon the 4 Brahma Viharas. Now we call them Brahma Viharas, but you have to realize that the Brahma realms are still within what? Samsara. They're still within samsara, right? The Brahma Viharas, the Brahma realms are still within samsara. So that doesn't free you. That's just a sidebar. You just need to know that. So, but you should at least be in those cultivating those states if you want to get off the wheel. Go to where the opening is. So we're moving closer and closer, or in higher. I hate to speak of higher in this way. I'm think of more expansive in every direction. Developing in every direction, and then you will get out of that meditation a kind of natural direction of what to do and how to handle issues in life. You don't have to always directly approach or attack a problem or a situation. All you have to do is release the scatteredness from your mind. And once you do that, then it becomes clear to you what you need to do or how you need to resolve something. See, this is building towards self-mastery. It's not building towards get the answer from your teacher. It's not built towards find it. It's just asking the question and settling and concentrating your mind because you have the Buddha nature already resident in you. And it will begin to come to you. And by establishing relationships with different, I established relationships with worldlings, human Dharma friends. I established relationships with holy beings, but I established that relationship through my actions. You know, if I don't have the actions, you know, they don't want to hang around me. They're paracletes, they're helpers. They have nothing to help me with. They have nothing to offer me unless I want to exemplify and operate in certain states of mind and through certain bodily behaviors. You know, and when I do, then it activates their mind stream and they are attracted to me. You know, so this is a way that you can understand this is not strange. It's just like in our normal everyday life, there are people we just don't want to be around. I mean, they could be people that we love in our families, but their manner, their behavior, we don't want it. We don't want to be around it. So we don't come around. You need something, I'll send it to you. You know, and you send it, but you just don't want to be around it. Or you can't be around that kind of behavior. When I say you can't be, is because you have not overcome in such a way or and established a vow to help and support and uproot those people. There's some bodhisattvas, you know, they made a vow to work with hell beings. I can't work with hell beings. I'm struggling with human beings. That's just my capacity right now, my limited capacity. But if I overcome that, you know, then maybe I'll get another job, or I'll sense a greater capacity for being touched by the infirmities of another class of beings, like petas, like hungry ghosts, or like, you know, but I can't just go say, oh, I'm gonna save the ghosts, because they'll beat your butt. I mean, you know, in their particular classification and mind state and the strength of their habitual practice of certain tendencies, they have some ways or some abilities to really hurt us or frighten us, or, you know, we don't know our own minds, you know, like the voice had told me in my head, just kill 5 people, you know. And so we'll say psychologically that was a mental illness, you know, but it could have been the influence, you know, of hell beings or hungry ghost beings. And, you know, so this is all about one's own mastery and providing protection for oneself from the seeds that have already been sown in the mind that you inherited. So in one sense, you can say, it wasn't my fault, you know. Pannavati has not been here before. This mind stream created the conditions for this body to arise where it arose in the mother that gave it birth in this incarnation or rebirth linking, you know, karma. But Pannavati didn't do it. I just inherited it. And when I die, wherever there is a re-arising of a being, that won't be Pannavati. that will be the result of that mind stream gravitating towards the right condition or body for its state of expression. There won't be Pannavati. That's why I'm very careful about speaking of loved ones or people that I have admired that have passed on, so that my mind doesn't get confused about, oh, that's so and so. Because when that body and mind separated, that was the end of that. The mind stream went on, but I don't know who or what they are right now. Don't know. I don't know what karma was coming to fruition. I might say, oh, Pannavati was a great person. I personally, he's the greatest person that I ever personally met and walked with on a daily basis. Like, you don't know somebody if you don't live with them. If you live with them and you're observing them closely, you see them all the time, not unless they tell on themselves, like I tell on myself, so y'all know I'm not all that good. But I can say for a fact, what you saw in Pannavati all the time, deeper all the time, that was who he was. That's what you got, And if you couldn't deal with that, it would really hurt your feelings if you like really wanted to be liked by him, because he would like just tell you. But yet he had a way of not requiring anything of you. That was the greatest attribute or quality that he had when you were in his presence. He did not require you to be any kind of way. He didn't, however you were, he was like, I accept that for you. You decide that, and I totally respect however you want to be. But now I can't say or talk to him like Pannavati, blah, 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 because I'm only falling back on that character that had a temporary manifestation, and he has come and he has gone, So there is something that moves forward, but is very much tied into our own mentality as to how we understand it. And on one level, we can understand it on the basis of that's my family, my loved one, and we are connected and we're tied, and I'll see them again in heaven, and I'll do all of that. And if so, then you're creating a certain illusory reality that will keep you rolling in over and over and over again. I mean, so you can do it, but I'm just saying it is, when I say evil, I mean in the sense that it will not take you to your ultimate goal. It can put you in a place, that you feel good about, And that's why we can let go of certain sorrows when we choose to, because our mind is chief. And whatever we think and ponder on becomes the inclination of the mind. Now we're talking about grown-up stuff. These are the steps to self-mastery. Being able to step out of the sentimental feelings that we have. And actually, it starts with the loosening in this life. We can't say, okay, so when I die, I won't think about it. It starts in this life. And it's not thinking about them, but it's about thinking about them differently in a non-fabricated, falsely fabricated way. And that begins to release our attachment. It doesn't mean that we don't enjoy them. Actually, we can enjoy them more Yeah, we can enjoy our loved ones more. We can enjoy our families more, but we have to go through the struggle of letting go of the tightness through which in which we hold them, and give them the right to be free persons. Doesn't mean we don't give them whatever was within our power to give them, but the greatest gift that we can give them is their freedom to evolve and get off the wheel of samsara. That's the greatest thing that we can give them. So meditation regulates. If you think of what it means to regulate, we could say it means to subdue and refine. To subdue and refine the thoughts that come into our mind until they get so fine that they fall away. So what has to be regulated in meditation? This is not a trick question.
Regulated?
Mm-hmm. What are we regulating?
Thoughts.
Okay, mind, what else?
Breath.
Breath, that's right. So the way that the Buddha taught us to regulate the mind is to fix it on an object, right? To keep it from being scattered. Now, to fix it on an object requires activity, to be actively with it. One of the practices we would do in Tai Chi was push hands. Now, with push hands, you were with your opponent like this, and you didn't push in like this, but what you focused on was the slightest movement or impulse until you could tell when he was getting ready to move. No, not when he moved, but that there was some action that took place before he moved. And so in the push and with the push hand, you never pushed against him, but you just stuck to him. And whichever way he moved. Now that took a great deal of concentration. I was not good with push hands. I thought I was good, but Pine did kept saying, "You're pushing," and I said, "No, you're pushing," But so you move everywhere with them and that's how you come. After a while, you could be this far from them, and you know when they're getting ready to move, and you could be further, and you know when they're getting ready to move because there's a refinement and a focus that becomes so clear that you can detect it. So that's the very first part of meditation. That's why it starts with the breath. And I'm going to give you this to just work on this for the next few days. And he said, establish mindfulness in front of you. Establish mindfulness in front of you. This was Shakyamuni Buddha's instruction.
How does this relate to where meditation must be developed on the foundation of kindness? So how does the mindfulness, breath, or feelings relate to that?
Because if you, this settledness that you need to have is an aspect of goodness, and goodness comes about through, there is, if one doesn't have a sense of goodness, then it's not going to be possible to meditate. Not in a meditation that leads to non-discrimination, right? Because if one has an ulterior motive, their meditation and all their practices are going to lead towards satisfying those motives, right?
So the inclination just can be very slight and subtle. towards
Mhm.
kindness.
And that's why one should always first reflect on and cultivate loving kindness. And do I need to go through that one before I do the first part? Okay, so through loving kindness for all beings, you can start with someone close to you and how you feel kindness towards. That's just loving, being kind towards it. And then somebody who's not so close to you, and just going out to like people who, your friends, your neighbors, but there comes a place where you don't even have to take it like that until you end up with your enemies. Don't start with your enemies because it's too hard. Okay. But after a while, you don't even have to do it in that order, because the more you're including other groups or categories of people into this, it starts to become more universal. And then you can just bring up, like a universal kind of kindness that includes everybody before you, those that are behind you, those that are to your left, to your right, above, below, and then the cardinal directions. You just have a sense of a global sense, and then a universal sense of all kinds of beings, and that's how you expand it. So in the beginning, you may have to start with the person that you love and then go to your children, but you shouldn't be in that state forever. You should be able, and it might take you 15 minutes, to just germinate that kind of sense. But after some time, you should be able to generate it in a minute. I mean, that should start to be where you abide. So some things that might take like a long time when you start, they won't always take that long. It'll be zip, like as soon as you turn your head to this activity of cultivating concentration, developing concentration, soon it's right there. It's like if I'm gonna meditate, if I sit in a meditative position, everything about me knows what I'm getting ready to do right now. And it's like, it just drops right there. If I sit in a chair and I'm gonna meditate, now my mind like, okay, what's she gonna do? She's gonna meditate, she's gonna read, she's gonna talk, she's gonna sing. But so it takes a little bit more focus for me to go into a meditation here. But I have a certain posture that I get into, and it's just like learning how to drive. I have to learn how to drive again every time I get in the car. So I have helps within my body construct that all move me towards that. That's why I recommend, I'm not sure that the Buddha recommended this, but I recommend meditating in the same place, all the time, because you actually build sort of like a mandala, and yeah.
It's like it takes advantage of the fact that we develop habits very quickly. And so, and it's a whole body thing. So we're just taking advantage of it, we're hacking.
Yeah. And then you would say sometimes like at the same time, set a time and do it at that same time. After a while, when it starts to get towards that time, I don't care what you're doing, your mind just starts to drift off towards, I feel like meditating now, So that's how you can just easily be there. In that sense, habitual tendencies can be good for us, you see. And so that's the first thing. So and don't start with these long times, because most of that time you're just sitting there with the mind running. Or I remember I told one of my masters like how I was so proud of how long I could sit. I can sit for hours. And so one day we did a meditation, and you have a lot of people in the room. It's it can be distracting, but nobody was bothering me. and we sat 5 minutes. We sat for an hour and a half. And the whole hour and a half, nobody bothered me. And I was so proud, and I wanted to tell them how long, you see how long I can sit, how I can go deep, deep, deep. And nobody, wasn't affected by anybody. He said no, but the whole time it was, and he hurt my feelings so bad. And so I hope, yeah. And so that got me out, that broke something for me though, because you don't want to fool yourself. So start with small amounts of time, 5 minutes. If you're sitting for an hour, and you're alert for that whole hour, then you're doing a good thing. But if you're sitting for that hour and you sleep for 50 minutes of that hour, then you're not really practicing. Jim, I'm gonna finish in 5 minutes. I know you coming up.
You said what now?
I'm gonna be finished in 5 minutes. I know you coming up to your limit.
Well, you said concentrate on what's in front of you. You started to say what you're not.
Establish mindfulness.
On what's
establish mindfulness in front of me. And so he said, so anyway, so now I'm bringing my attention right here to establish mindfulness in front of me. I'm bringing it in here. And then he says, turn your attention to the in-breath, where it ceases to be external air and becomes internal air. So where would that be? Some of our teachers have said, some people say, I can't find my breath. So they said, okay, look at the rising and the falling of your belly. And that can help. And that's fine. Some teachers have given that, but I'm just telling you what Shakyamuni suggested. Okay. And it'll be very much useful for you in other spaces. So where do you feel the inhalation ceasing to be external air and becoming internal air?
Nostrils.
In the nostril. Okay. And so he says, find that place where you first detect. So if we just right now close our eyes and feel for it, no strong breath, just a gentle inhalation. Okay, now he says, next, find the spot where the exhalation ceases to be internal air. And so it's now external air. Now, when we start doing that, for the first few breaths, you can feel the sense of alertness, concentration, a pregnancy of presence. Presence is pregnant. You're totally aware, both spatially, and the mind is gathered. The mind is not running all over the place now. Right there, you can sense it. The problem is that we can't hold that. And so the first practice for truly developing concentration that will support you beyond sitting on the cushion is to get these preliminary aspects down correctly. So you breathe in and you breathe out. He said, and then you begin to notice what is actually happening with that. So there is both investigation you're actually thinking, right? And there's observation, there's investigation, and there's observation. So you're feeling the sensations, knowing what's involved in this process. You can feel the coolness of the air entering the nostril because the temperature out here is cooler than 98.6 or whatever. And you can feel the warmth of the air, internal air, as it leaves the nostril. You can tell whether your breathing is like really on a punctuated inhale, exhale, or whether that's a long breath in. Is the inhalation longer than the exhalation?
Exhalation's more.
Or the exhalation is longer? And that's an individual thing. What is it for you? For me, my inhalation is longer than my exhalation, or I perceive it as longer simply because the inhalation took action. It required action for me to suck it in. But the exhalation, it like it goes out by itself. I have to try to hold it, you know. But for someone else, it might be a different way, right? Was that a short breath or a long breath? Was that like a staccato kind of breath? Just what was the breath? And so you're in this time of learning how to focus the mind, how to filter it all down, develop concentration. The reason why you need this is when all kinds of thoughts come to your mind as you go through your dharma practice and as you develop. Your mind still has reign if you have not developed the power of concentration. It'll be all over everywhere and all into everything, and it'll lead you around like this. And you'll advance and fall back, advance and fall back, advance, fall back. You won't keep advancing. And so it's to let you know what that state feels like, so you can experience the state, and then you know when you're in it and you know when you're not. So that's the first part of concentrating. And once you're like right here, you can like hold yourself right there. But then after a while, you let go and see if you remain right there. Now it's not investigation and observation. You just dropped off investigate and you just said observation. And you do this for some time, and the observation will fall away. When the observation falls away, what do? You go back to investigate and observe.
Is that when you,
You just go back to the beginning.
just the same thing?
Mm-hmm. Investigate and observe. And then after a while, as habitual as we are, there'll come the time that as soon as you sit and take the first, like I'm going to meditate now. As soon as I'm going to sit and focus and concentrate my mind, I am sharpening my faculty, my capacity for clear-sightedness. As soon as you sit, you'll be right there. If you're used to going to sleep 30 seconds after you sit, you'll continue to go to sleep for 30 seconds after you sit. But it's about having the clarity to observe, of observation, and to investigate this state. You skip that, and your meditation will never take off. And you'll never be able to steady and concentrate your mind. I don't care how much you learn, you will not be able to get much benefit from me. This is a first level First aspect of master. And after a while, you could do it anytime. Like right now, like I'm talking to you. But I know where that place is. I know where that state is. And so you can just drop into it anytime. It has its own quiescence too, doesn't it? Now, there are other meditation practices, but he said this is the first one we should learn so that we know the quality of quiescence. And then after a while, you stop examining, investigating, and you just observe. So now not is this a long breath, is this a short breath? It was the air cold on the inhalation, or was it warm on the exhalation? Or was it the reverse? I'm just not. Those questions are just designed to see what kind of qualities are present, and that's why I forget about that. And you just observing.
When you're,
And so he says, with applied and sustained thought, one enters into the first jhana with applied and sustained. There's no way to get into the first jhana without thought.
Applied and sustained.
That is not going to be a jhana, that's going to be a dead zone. First was applied and sustained. That's accompanied by piti and sukha. Applied and sustained thought. So there's also sensation, there's feeling in this, right? So meditation may lead to the dissolving of all these things, but it starts with the awareness of all these things. Right? So it says accompanied by, that's like happiness and bliss. So if you have happiness and bliss, you should stay with that, or you stay with that until all sorrow or despair or whatever is uprooted. Because it's in the uprooting of the sorrow and despair that one enters into the second jhana. Okay, so I mean that's a lot right there. Some of us might have to sit with that for a while, but you need to know what you're looking for when you're there. So it says accompanied by, that means a feeling of happiness will arise that will suppress or push away. And this is how we learn how to deal with our moods and our mood swings. You see, so it's not just about sitting, meditating, but he's giving us tools, and we're perfecting the tools to be able to deal with our mental flip-flops and not run off with the mind telling us a story, because we know how to bring it, how to come into concentration. And I'm ending right now. I just wanted to finish that first jhana. And that's all I want to talk with. I want people to practice that and just sit with that, investigate it, and see what just that little bit is huge to enter into the first jhana. Most people never get into it at all. They enter into that first jhana, accompanied by piti and sukha. And it's based on thought. It's based on observation.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear accompanied by what?
Thought.
No,
Thought.
PT.
PT and sukha.
PT and sukha.
So by a sense of happiness and bliss. Okay, so now happiness, when you're happy about something, it has a kind of energy, right? Like me, that makes me really happy. I like singing spiritual songs. It brings me a kind of happiness. But then it shifts to a kind of bliss. It's like because it elevates my state. I enter into another state. And then its quality changes. So the happiness has some kind of it's like active. It's I always describe it like seeing an oasis. You're on a desert and you see an oasis, and you know you can crawl three more feet and get to the water. That's the happiness that I found the water hole. You know, so it's active. Bliss is after, and now I'm satisfied. So it has like a culminating kind of energy. Now I'm satiated. I've had enough.
That's the second one.
No,
Oh.
that's
just
the top of the first.
Oh, the top of the
That's the
first
piti,
one.
right? Top of the first. And the only way you get to the second is through the bliss. The bliss is the doorway. You don't get to the bliss, you don't get to the second jhana. That's it. You can't get there because it is the doorway. It means like somebody tell a joke and you laugh, or you see something funny or whatever, but you just can't laugh for 20 hours. I mean, that's good. The laughing's going to end, you know. So getting to the second jhana is like when you top out with the bliss, and it catapults you into the next stage. So work on getting into the first stage of jhana. I mean, really, really perfecting it, really entering into it, like earth-shattering. Not just a little bit of like I feel a little calmer now, but I mean like really investigating it, really being right there, and see how it shifts your perception of everything. And at times when you are floundering, you know where to go, because that's a state. And that's just the first level of the state that bodhisattvas in the causal stage and that holy beings, that's the same trajectory that they were on to reach those higher states. We want the higher states, but we have to perfect. We got to walk up these steps and perfect it. Then when you turn your mind to something, your mind will be absolutely connected to what you turn it towards, because you will have mastered the quality of concentration, the quality of it. And you will know when you're in it, and you'll know when you're not. Okay, I think I'll stop right there. And everybody's clear on the instruction and practice. And like 5 minutes, if 5 minutes is too much and you start wandering all over the place, just do 3 minutes. But if you want to do 5 minutes, or you want to do 10 minutes of it, like when you fall out, when you realize that your mind segued over to something else, just I left, go back, start at the beginning again. Go back, start at the beginning again. It's just like everything else that we master. This requires that kind of effort too. And don't think like I'll never get it. It's like I'm gonna get it. There's no way not to get it, because I am repetitiously doing something until I master it. And you gotta understand what you're doing and understand the benefit of it. Oh, maybe you don't have to understand the benefit of it, but just be committed to doing it on the basis of faith in the ones who have attained, that you believe have attained.
Then you'll get it.
Then you get it. Yeah. Okay. I think I'll stop right there. Alrighty. Any questions about how to do it? Yes.
I've got one question.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's related, but at one point early on, you said there was four, I don't remember the word, but the first one was cultivating loving kindness.
Oh, the four Brahma Viharas. They're states of mind. And the first one is loving kindness. Loving kindness is loving being kind. You know how to be kind to like your daughter or somebody that you love. Can you give that same kindness to other members of your family? Can you give it to your friends? Can you give it to your neighbors? Can you give it to just beaming it out to your city, just going out further and further till you cover the whole globe, just sending loving kindness. May they be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm, no danger come to them. May they be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. May they have all their needs met. May they have, not be separated from their happiness is the next thing you're going to. May they not do things that will cause them harm, that will cause others harm. So that's having compassion for them, that they will take the right actions so that they won't have to experience the repercussions of wrong actions and that they won't harm other people. And then the third is may they altruistic joy, like when they get things or when they receive beneficial things, can you be glad about it even if it's your enemy? Like that uproots jealousy and envy in you. When somebody receives something, you know that the conditions, the causes for them to receive it are present. That's why they have it. That's cause and effect. So don't like, well, why'd they get it? Or they're evil people, they don't deserve it. There is something in that whole karmic package that allowed for that blessing to come. So can I be glad about that? Now we're in some challenging times about some things. This is what's going to really challenge whether you accept what you say you accept or you don't. So even when I see people doing things, not making excuses for wrongness, but when I see people receiving certain blessings that I don't think they don't deserve anything, it's not really true. All I'm seeing is like they're just all bad, but I don't, because I can only see this far into their present. I can't see into their future at all, and I can't see into their past. So I don't know what's causing this present moment to arise in their life. So part of that has to be releasing the judgment against people that I think are bad, and rather praying for whatever merit they have in their life to manifest at this time. That might shift how they think and change the way they are being in this moment, something like that. And then the fourth Brahma Vihara. So that was loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy in the successes of others. And the fourth one has been called equanimity. And that means, friend or foe, just being relaxed about it all. Not, he doesn't deserve it, she should get it. It's not, none of that. Just this is how it is, all things due to causes and conditions. But what allows that kind of equilibrium of mind is to have a boundless generation. May all beings be free. May all beings attain liberation. May they be free from suffering. May all beings have good fortune and prosperity of all kinds, and that's how one begins to shift one mind. That's the first step.
Thank you.
And we call it boundless generosity, just having a generous nature towards everybody. And I tell you, this will get you out of your problems. When you're overcome by your personal problems and your difficulty, there is no other way. There's no other way to get over yourself. There's no other way to get over unfortunate circumstances that come into your life. This is the work. this is what you have to do. I don't care how much you talk to people. I don't care how much you say you understand, the principles of Dharma or whatever. This is the work that transforms the nature of your experiences in day to day.
May the merit of our practice in listening to Dharma here today, attentively listening. Any merit generated by that may go to all living beings everywhere, that they may find the Dharma, master their own minds, as we've discussed today. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. And may we always be the cause for the happiness of others that we encounter. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they know the causes of suffering. May they know how to avoid causes of their own suffering, thereby avoiding the suffering of others. And may we never be the cause for the suffering of any other.
Thank you.